Hey guys, yesterday I put out that video talking about the process I took and the steps it took to make it to where I am in GLORY Kickboxing right now. And I thought it'd be kind of fun and cool to break down the individual steps I took from the start to now to get there. So we referenced a few fights that I had that were the catalyst to launch me into this platform. And so I want to break those down, but I kind of want to start from the beginning and how I got involved in any of this anyway. And so the first thing I want to kind of talk about is when I began training. I began training, I was right about to turn 18, or I was 18, and I walked into an MMA gym called Dave Strasser's Freestyle Academy. This was in Kenosha, Wisconsin, where I'm from. I had already been training Taekwondo and competing in that, and I just thought cage fighting looked like fun, so I found the nearest MMA gym. It was his. I walked in, and if you guys don't know who Dave Strasser is, he's really one of the early pioneers of MMA. He started, I believe, his career, at least the base of his career, with Pat Miletich, training out there, and then we had a really great team of guys, that high level guys, fighting out of our gym just out of little Kenosha for quite a while. We had guys fighting in the UFC, we had guys fighting in WEC, we had guys fighting in Bodog at the time, all over the world, M1, things like that. So I walked in, I had zero experience, and I sat down in front of this guy, Dave, and if you guys don't know him, he's a little crazy. He signed me up, no problem. I just told him I wanted to try fighting, didn't ask me any other questions, just signed me up. Threw me right in. When you were part of Dave's classes, it wasn't, at least back then, it's not like it is today. We didn't have jiu-jitsu classes, we didn't have straight kickboxing classes. Just about every night, what we did is we did an hour of striking and an hour of grappling. And then Tuesdays and Thursdays, we'd spar. Now, for the life of me, I don't remember ever wearing shin guards or anything like that when we'd spar. It was literally, you put the MMA gloves on, and you get in the ring, and who's ever got fights coming up, we're throwing down with them. And so it was a little old school as far as training goes, but the guys that were coming out of there were doing extremely well, tough guys. And that, I kind of referenced that in the last video, is you kind of have to go through that. You have to go through this tough stuff first before you can come out on top and start to really see where you're at and see where you make it and see how you want to train. You hear a lot of guys talk about not sparring as much and things like that, but they've already been through that tough stuff. So Dave's was great for that. So after about 4 months of training, and I was nowhere near, I wouldn't let any of my guys fight like this. I had only done about 4 months of training with Dave, and I told him he had a show coming up. I went to one of his shows that he had. He held his own shows called Freestyle Combat Challenge, and I asked him, I said, hey man, I want to fight. He said, no problem. He got me on his card. Dave didn't really pick and choose. I mean, if you wanted to fight, he'd throw you in there. If you did well, you'd keep going. If not, no worries. You could keep training if you wanted to, or you could quit. So I got into one of the cards in Kenosha, and I ended up fighting one of Dave's guys from his other gym. He had two gyms. One was Kenosha, the North Gym, and one was in Waukegan in Illinois, maybe about 30, 40 minutes away. And so a lot of times we just fight guys from the gym to get fights and get experience. Now, I walked into this fight, again, completely unprepared. But I had some guys from my Taekwondo school corner me. I had a guy, training partner from Dave's, come corner me. And we get in there, and I'm fighting this guy named Alberto Ramirez. And he had been training with Dave's guys, I don't know, for at least over a year. He had a few fights for Dave already. He was heavier than me, but he was shorter than me. And so I went into that fight. I didn't know any better. I won that fight, and I really think it's because I didn't know as much as I should have known. That you don't know when you're in a bad situation sometimes, and you don't know when to give up. I was in danger quite a few times, and I just maybe was too dumb or too naive, but I was able to get out of it, keep fighting through, and I eventually won that fight with a TKO, some ground and pound. And what happened was, in the fight, I want to say it was toward the end of the second round, I was standing up, and I was stacking Bert. He had me in a real tight arm bar. Now, this was before there was commissions, or at least in Wisconsin there wasn't a commission at the time, so there were no rules. You were able to head stomp people, you could soccer kick people, things like that. And so I was in this armbar, I had him stacked, I was standing, and I was able to stomp on his head. The one thing that was illegal is you still weren't allowed to hit in the back of the head. So the first stomp I hit him with rolled him over. The second stomp I hit him with was to the back of the head, kind of put him out, so they gave him a chance to recover. I got to give him credit. He didn't quit. If he did, I guess I would have been disqualified. But he came back out in the third, tried to shoot, and I ended up bumping him down, like hip bumping him, and got onto mount and just was able to finish the fight there. So the next maybe 3 days later, I walk into the gym to train, and I talk to Dave, and I'm like, hey man, that was awesome. Thanks for letting me fight. And he just slips me some cash. And I had no clue that I was even, I'm used to doing Taekwondo tournaments and things like that where you're paying to do it. I had no idea what I was doing was even a professional fight. So he handed me some cash. I was like, what's this for? He's like, oh, it's for winning, it's for fighting for me. And it went on my pro record. I never had a chance to do amateur fights. I kind of wish I would have. But from that point on, I've been fighting pro. I'm going to talk more about Dave's and kind of how that got me, that changed my mentality or built my mentality for this sport. How that got me into kickboxing. So I have some stories about some barns and things like that. But really, before the commission came around and fighting for Dave kind of shaped my outlook on this stuff. And I want to explore that a little bit more in future videos. So again, guys, that was my first fight. That's how I got into training, and that's how I started this journey. So again, I'll try to do at least one video a day where I'm sharing these stories with you guys and kind of document my journey to where I am. So if you guys don't mind, please subscribe. It helps me out a lot, and hopefully I can provide some more valuable content, and I'll try to get some more training videos out for you guys over the next week. Thanks. So thank you.